Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this impromptu conversation between Philip Peroune, president of Bishop's High School Alumni Association, New York Tri-State Chapter, and my other friend, or our friend, John Campbell, president of Queens College Alumni, New York. This conversation is happening here this evening for the simple reason that the three of us attended Queens College. We met each other in 1974 in a classroom, same class, 1C. And I thought that we have a unique opportunity here to bring, well, not me really, I just happen to be the host, but to bring these two young men together to talk about us meeting in 1C Queens College, co-education, and most importantly, these two young men happen to be presidents of the associations I mentioned. So this is not going to be no very serious conversation. When Philip, John, and I get together, it's usually a gaffe. So guys, season's greetings and welcome. You know, I dusted out the mic to have this conversation. So let's go. Let me start with you, Philip. 1974.
How was the same day?
It's a long time ago. John, 1974, we met. Following year, Philip and I were transferred to Bishop's High School to begin co-education. Looking back, and I've never asked you this question before, looking back, what ran through your mind the first day of school in 1975 second form? Because none of us knew that who was going to be transferred or who was transferred. What ran through your mind?
Good evening, everyone. Selwyn, thanks for coming up with this idea. And indeed, when 1C guys get together, we have a good time. For me, it was starting over, meaning I had just gone through first form at QC, which was, you know, a kind of a rite of passage in terms of, I'm going to a big boy school now. The drama and the pressures of common entrance, as what it was called then, that is done with. You now enjoyed your first year, get your feet wet into QC. So it was, to me, that experience all over when I arrived at Bishop's was, oh boy, this is a new experience. And it was a little more nerve-wracking because now you have all these young women who are there watching you, some smiling, some looking a little angrily at you. Here comes the males to invade our space. So it was like two first form years, you know, experience.
Mm-hmm. And John, you.
So thanks for the invite, Selwyn. I'm really happy to have an opportunity to meet with you and Philip in this forum. First time I'm hearing your show, and I've always watched it and I was very impressed with the work you do. So thanks for this opportunity. So I can't truthfully say I remember my very first day in Queens College. I do remember the weeks leading up to that, where we had to go into school to buy our, gym clothes.
John, hold a second. Not your first day in Queens College, but your first day after co-education.
The day, okay.
Right.
I think different to Philip's experience is that I was in the school already 1 year when the girls came in. So we weren't as nervous about the girls coming in as Philip might have been, or you might have been when you went up to Bishop's. I must say, however, that it didn't take long for the girls, at least in my year, to really put their stamp on things and to let us know that they are here to stay and they can give as much, as good as they got. And but we blended very well, very quickly. And then I think we were lucky in my class, which is, I think, 2D in second form. We had some great young ladies who I still know to this day and still see, still talk to on the phone. and we blended very well. And I think the didn't have a girlfriend, but for some reason I did really well in first form, academically. But slowly in second form I didn't do as well. I don't know why. It wasn't because of the girls coming in, but I guess there was a little distraction. But I think I said to Philip at some point very recently that I was a little jealous of the boys who went to the bishops. Not because I wanted to go, but I really did not want to go. But it just seems as though they went over there, or you guys went over there and assimilated so well. It seems as though the girls embraced you and sort of like were big sisters and sort of guiding you along the way. And I don't think that we got that sort of touch in Queens College. You know, of course you got the opportunity or the know-how to be big and tough and big and bad, but not that sort of gentle touch I think you need as you go forward in life. So I was a little jealous of that, but I was really happy I didn't have to go. I was really nervous when the word first came out during the summer of '75 that the schools are going co-ed. And I was like, praying that, hopefully that great God, hope I'm not going over there. And I'm happy I didn't, but I'm still a little jealous of the guys that went over.
And any regrets? That the
No.
school co-educated?
No. I think it was a great thing. I mean, in retrospect, I think it was a fantastic thing to have the blend, boys and girls in the same school, and I think it worked well for both genders.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Philip? Any regrets?
About the co-educational process or going to bishops?
Going to bishops.
Going to bishops, no regrets. I think in the end, the girls or the young ladies were welcoming. It was, I think from my perspective, is the fact that QC was a much bigger school, physically as well as population-wise. And you had that feeling of this being a smaller building, smaller amenities, and that in itself brought a little regret. And being a guy, sports, you had that little feeling of regret. But in terms of the co-educational experience, no regrets.
Mm-hmm. Around what time you would say you fully adjusted?
To bishops?
Yeah.
I would say in the first year, maybe either in the second or third semester. I mean, it wasn't a terrible situation. It was intimidating, especially with the higher girls, the higher ups, the 4th, 5th, 6th formers, because the one thing in a way is when you have two older siblings, you tend to be known a little more. So, that is my brother's, this their younger brother and that kind of stuff. So did that mean much? No, but I thought within the first year, the first semester towards the end, and definitely beginning January, I felt assimilated.
Mm-hmm. I remember interviewing Mrs. Carmen Jarvis, and I asked her this question: what was the process to select people to go across to bishops and to transfer? And I also remember that we spent years trying to come up with some kind of algorithm, as to what, we're looking around, so well, but you were bright, so it can't be about that, you weren't this bad, and we tried. And she said that it was an alternate selection. You go, you stay, you go, you stay. I thought that was ingenious, right? That was really ingenious. When you got that letter, John, I know you said you felt a little apprehension when you heard that education was going to be implemented. When you got that letter, I mean, I'm going to ask Philip just now because that was a different reality, but when you got your letter that, I don't know if you guys got a letter saying that you're going to stay. Did you get a letter? I
don't remember. We must have gotten some sort of communication saying that you need to report to school on September 10th or whatever. at Queen's College. There must have been some sort of written communication. I don't remember it though at this point. Yeah. But I gotta say, I guess jumping ahead of your question, that there was certainly a huge feeling of relief when I found out that I was not in the group going over to Bishops. Right. I was really, really, really happy.
John sounds rather happy that we left or something.
I think so.
No, not at all. But you know what? Just going back to your question, Philip, earlier, I want to say, I think, leadership matters. And I think at the time of this co-education, this combination of the two schools, we had two really strong leaders at Queen's College, Mr. Trotz and Ms. Jarvis at Bishops. And back in 2015, we had an event, which is a gala, celebrating 40 years of women in Queen's College, 40 years of co-education. And we invited Mr. Trotz to come and be the keynote speaker. And we brought him in from Canada. And he spoke a lot too long for some of the audience. He spoke for maybe 25, 30 minutes. And he really went into a lot of detail into what went into the preparation for this. And I have the speech somewhere in my computer. I can probably send it to you, Selwyn, or for Philip at some point. But he never touched on the criteria that determined who went to Bishops and who stayed. But I don't think that alternate pick was entirely accurate, because you remember in our class, in our row, actually, you and I were in the same row in Queen's College. It was Bob, Campbell, Charles, Collins, David. So Bob went to Bishops, Campbell and Charles stayed, Collins went, David stayed. And then, so maybe it'd be one, then keep two, then send one, then keep two. I don't know, but it
I don't know,
exactly,
but I'm not gonna
exactly
doubt.
alternate, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna doubt Carmen.
On that note, John, I did actually have the same conversation with Mrs. Jarvis, and what she said, it was alternate, but there were certain cases where like siblings, other situations that they made a decision that no, let me keep this person here. So a better support or what have you. So they might have been, because I dare not suggest that they didn't know the alphabet. I just wanted to make sure.
Well, like everything else in life, there are exceptions.
There were exceptions. There were exceptions.
I have heard some of the guys complain, the guys that transferred to Bishops, of getting some pushbacks from some of the female teachers, not many. I had one experience or observation, I should say. But was that true for you, Philip? Did you feel that there was a sort of resistance to boys coming out to school by any of the female teachers?
No, not at all. I didn't feel that way. No.
What about you, John, in your case?
I don't think so. As I said before, there was really strong leadership at the school, and a lot of preparation went into it. Part of the preparation was put in place a couple of strong female teachers at Queen's College, who were actually go-to people in case the ladies had issues. There's a recently deceased late Esther Rollins, who many of us may remember, who was like a really strong advocate for the girls, who the girls knew that they can go to with any issues, and who the boys knew not to mess with, So I don't think they were, some of the girls might actually correct me here, but I don't think there were many instances where girls were taken advantage of, or where they were made to feel unwelcome any more than in any normal situation. Because, QC men were always gentlemen, for the most part.
I didn't hear that, John. Sorry.
As a QC men are always gentlemen.
Yes, of course.
So I think the women were treated exceptionally well, as they should be. And then too, you remember also that there were so many close bonds between QC and Bishops. Many of us QC boys had either sisters or bishops. I had two sisters of Bishops. Or had mothers who went to Bishops, or at some point girlfriends and wives from Bishops. So I think there already was quite a bit of symmetry, but but there's good connection between the two schools already. So I think it was easy.
Yeah.
Do you remember ever having a conversation, or a conversation existed where either of the sexes was asked, how are they making out? How are they feeling? Do you remember? I mean, I was Bishop's. I don't remember ever having that, but did that occur at Queen's College?
No, and I'm speaking for myself. We were not at that level. We weren't at a point where we can have those sort of intelligent conversations with the young ladies our age. They were so way ahead.
Speak for yourself, John.
I'm speaking for myself, and I think they had sort of the older girls, sort of like big sisters to them, and I think the extra effort was made to make sure that ladies were comfortable, right, and were taken care of. And it was a big school, it was a wide open school. There wasn't much chance for any sort of shenanigans. Things went pretty well, I think.
Selwyn, there are a couple of things I want to mention, and I think I've spoken about it to some audiences at Piece of Time. There were some growing pains getting over to Bishop's, and this was more on the serious side, academics. QC's first form foreign language was Spanish. Bishop's first form foreign language is French. And I don't know if you remember, when we went into second form, we had to do second year French and repeat first year Spanish. So
that was tough.
All the boys failed French because we didn't have the foundation of understanding conjugation of verbs and all these things. So we had that issue. And then even with math, QC was a traditional math school. Bishop's was the modern math. So you go from learning algebra, geometry to now the metric system and all these different things. The physical side of it was, look at QC's playground. Look at the magnitude, the size. You could have like 4 football matches at the same time, 3 cricket matches. So going now to playing cricket on their tennis court, so you break a window, it's a detention. So my point is, you didn't have the physical infrastructure to accommodate these young men who are coming now full of energy. There was no avenue to outlet that energy because you can't hit the ball too hard. You'll break a window. You couldn't hook the ball because Tower Hotel pool is right there. I'm thankful to this day that the few times the ball went over to Tower Hotel, no one got injured because it was a cricket hard ball going over into the pool area, because the pool area was at the back of the hotel, which was to our back of the high school compound. So that was frustrating. And then to answer the point more directly that you asked, you, as a young boy, 12, 13, you dare not look at a young lady who's in 5th, 6th form. They would snap at you in terms of, you're doing untoward, you're not behaving yourself, meaning either carrying yourself properly or trying to make some snide remark. They would dress you down. So I think we were a bit more under some manners, as they say, as 2nd and 3rd formers at Bishop's High School.
John, I think that speaks to your point about how we seem a little bit more groomed, and I concur with Philip on that. There was that, you talked about Big Sister early on, John. There was a program at Bishop's High School, which to this day I'm very thankful for, where Philip, you can correct me on this. I'm not sure if there were upper 6 or lower 6 women. I think there were upper 6 girls that were assigned to the boys, some of the boys. So I had my own. I think Philip, I don't know if you had one, but we had these chaperones, so to speak. And that was set up to help us to assimilate into the culture. And if we had any issues, we could speak with them.
Selwyn,
yeah.
I don't recall that. Maybe that was for bad boys. I don't know.
Could have been, Philip. But that existed there, right? Sharon's sister Dawn was mine, you know, and I benefited a lot from that. Did something similar existed at Queen's College?
I don't know. But
that would have been pretty awkward, though.
Yeah, I gotta believe that there would have been something like that for the girls. Now, what happened back then was girls came in second and third form from Bishops, and also in lower sixth and sixth form and upper sixth. So there would have been the ability to have older girls who could be big sisters to the girls. Yeah, I don't think that it would have been reversed where the girls had big brothers. I rather think
that would have been pretty awkward.
Yeah, there would not have been that. But I think there may have been upper sixth and lower sixth girls and bishops who may have filled that role. As I said before as well, they had some teachers some female teachers who were actually earmarked for that sort of guidance aspect. Now, I said a couple times before, I think things work very well. Maybe we need to get on a couple of young ladies who were actually part of the process, who would give you it from their perspective as well.
I think that's why we should have a part 2 of this.
Yes.
Where we can invite other stakeholders to be part of this conversation, because I don't think this is enough. I remember Mrs. Fox at Bishop's High School, who, well, this is from her mouth, because she had a son, William, who was a typical guy, typical young boy, a lot of energy and, you know, what we call back in the days, bad boy. So she understood us. And she was someone that we could have gone to. I don't know if I should be telling this to the public. I remember trying to back out one morning from Bishop's. And I don't know where, I think I was wanted to slip into the city or something, but I was backing out and I backed into a finger. And I'm peeping, I'm looking to see if Mrs. Jarvis is anywhere around or so on. And I backed it, and it was her finger. And anyway, she took me and, you know, saved me, because if I were caught out there by Mrs. Jarvis or any one of the other teachers, I would have been in some serious trouble. But we had that. And I mean, I've heard people who've had different experiences. I do not presume to speak for everyone. I know I had a good experience. Philip spoke on that. But fast forward today, we're here, right? John, I think this is what, your second tenure as president of the association?
Yes, it is.
Second. And that's not unusual. Queen's College being a predominantly male school historically, and, you know, you all had a female president at one point, which I think was historic. That was good. Philip, you were the second male to hold this position. So let me start with you, Philip, and then I'll go to John about being president of an historically female association. What was that like for you? What was it like for you, your first meeting when you were elected president into this association? What was that experience like for you?
Deep down, it's a humbling experience to lead any organization, but also one that, you know, you can't help but think when you entered there in 1975, that actually helped to mold you and turn you out to be who you are today. And you didn't, the sad part about everything in life, you didn't appreciate when you were going through that experience, what it was like till now you look back. But it's a humbling experience. And I want to say the executive that I have, I couldn't have asked for a better executive. and they have supported me tremendously in my tenure so far. And that kind of made it a little easier to be president. They actually made me look good most times. So, but the knowledge of being president is never lost on me. And I really consider this a really humbling experience and a joy, and the positiveness of it is really tremendous.
And you, John, you're first. What was that like for you?
It was good as well. It was a little intimidating. And I say that because, just to give a little bit of history. So I joined the association in a serious way around 2006, 2007. And I got right in, I got involved immediately. But, on the exec, because I was in every position, the exec, secretary, treasurer, or whatever. But I got a chance to learn how to defeat the giants. I had guys who led the association before, like names like Larry Boxell, Alfred Granger, Louis Kilkenny. These are guys who I learned from. So when it became my turn, when I got elected president, as far as historically, it was good. I mean, because I had all this knowledge that I gained from these guys before me, but still, you realize that you are the president of a bunch of guys who are like top dogs in all of their industries, and you feel like I'm leading these guys. It's really all inspiring, to think that I'm leading I'm responsible for making decisions of all these guys who are way smarter than I am, and so it was a little intimidating at first, but over the course of time, and I've had a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances to learn and to get better, because I think now I'm in my combined, I think in my 7th year as president. All right, so I'm still learning, but I have learned a lot over the years, and like Philip mentioned, the exec. One thing I learned a long time ago from somebody much more knowledgeable than I am is that when you want to be successful in any sort of business environment, and you got to get a board, try to elect a board or exec of people who are smarter than you are, and once you have that in place, everything else runs really well. Just make sure that there are people who will support what you believe in. They're on board and they got the know-how, and things have worked well. I've never regretted, deciding to say yes and to be president, both the first term around or the second time we started in 2019.
Were you surprised that you were elected a second time around?
Not really. Look at me. Would you be surprised? No.
What did I tell you?
Actually, the second time around, I was asked to come back because there was a little bit of a gap in leadership, and then I got reelected, in September, and it's a lot of work. I got to tell you, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is on a normal, uneventful week. I mean, I spend 4 or 5 hours doing QC business, right? When is an event coming up and something like that, it's a whole lot more, So it's a lot of work, and some people I think shy away from the role. I mean, a lot of people can do it. I mean, everyone I think has the ability to do it, but there's a certain commitment that's needed, And talk to all the presidents before you talk to Alfred Granger, you talk to Karen Wharton, you talk to Larry Boxell. They'll tell you there's a lot of commitment in order to get this going and to be successful in the job. And I think some people may shy away from it, but I wasn't surprised that I got elected, the last 3 or 4 times. So it's all good.
Why do you do it? Why?
I said before, I learned to defeat the giants, and I feel a certain responsibility. So I mean, these guys, before me, have been doing this since 1991. Put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into getting the association up to where it is now. All right, and I gotta put my best foot forward to try to ensure that we keep up the level that these guys set and improve on it. So I keep doing as long as I can. And as long as I get the support, which I don't think would fade, because every year we seem to get a new group coming on board and providing the support that we need. So I like doing it. I like doing it. I tell people there's no corporate jet. There's no benefits to it. I mean, but just the fact that you are making a difference, especially over the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years, we've really been connecting directly with the students at Queens College. In the past, in the older days, you send down, footballs and computers and chemistry equipment and stuff. But then, in my first tenure, I read around 2014 when like Karen was like VP, and we really started, looking at doing things that impacted the kids directly, like student conferences. In 2016, we started our first math camp. And I mean, it's so pleasing when you look at the results, the exam results, and you see, Samuel Haynes, he topped the Caribbean as a kid. And I'm like, oh, I know Samuel very well. Samuel was in the first math camp. And I go to my phone, there's a picture of Samuel and I shaking hands, or Samuel and me shaking hands, or Samuel and Terrence Blackman shaking hands. So it's really rewarding to know that you were part of the development of these students, and that's why I do it. It takes a lot of time. I get into fights with my wife about it, but still, I keep pushing forward because I think it's good work to be doing. I think the kids appreciate it, teachers appreciate it. And we want to make Guyana a better place. So not just Queens College, we want to make the entire Guyana a better place. I think we're on the right track. And I think Philip would say the same thing as well, because he's been doing great work there as well, Bishops.
Yeah. Philip, and you?
Yeah, I mean, what John said is exactly right. Why do we do it? Because in the end, it's about helping alma mater, and hopefully that in turn helps Guyana. Because what you want these young people to do is to eventually become the leaders that can take Guyana forward. And as John said, we started a couple of years back to really start to get into the school, to really understand the students we're dealing with, what makes them tick, what is the way forward for them. The part about that is you're also navigating a government bureaucracy, which I'm sure we can probably get into a little later. And that's how the nature of the beast is. But in the end, it's for those students. And when you meet with them, you could see there's a little sparkle in their eyes that, I'm getting some information that I might not have normally gotten if you guys didn't come and talk to us or participated in something.
And to follow up on that, Philip, just think back to when we were 13 or 14 years old. If we had an opportunity to be able to sit and talk to adults, albeit adults from the United States or from England or somewhere abroad, who are not just talking to us, but are interested in hearing what we got to say, think how thrilling that would have been for us. And I think that's the same sort of thing that I see the kids feel. That we now we were adults, I guess, so to speak, and we are adults, and we are talking to them. And so it really is a good thing.
Yeah. I think visitors were very few and very far in between. I now that you bring it up, I don't know, Selwyn, if you could recall any adult come in while we were there to talk about careers or opportunities. I don't recall.
No.
Because I was speaking to a fellow alum, and she said that she chose her particular career because somebody did go to Bishops and talked about that career. And she said, you know what, it's a career I could be interested in. And she ended up following that career. So, if it would have made a difference in one person's life, that's one more than you had before.
Yeah.
And Philip, while I have you, let's talk a little bit about challenges. Running an organization or leading the association. What are some challenges that immediately jump out at you?
The biggest challenge is distance between New York and Georgetown, and it is what it is. Basically, A challenge for me is the speed at which some things are happening, and I should say the lack of speed of which it's happening. That is a challenge for me personally. And it's not that any particular person is delaying the process. It's just the process itself seems to be one of time. There's no time constraint, no sense of urgency, I suppose is the best way. That, we want to get things done. We want to do things in a quick manner so that the students could benefit, the things could get in the students' hand. And, your response is a bit lagging, things are not happening fast enough. So on that level, that's the challenge. The second challenge, which to me is even more important, we need to inject some youth into our chapter. We are studying ways how we can get younger people involved in our chapter, and that causes me some time-consuming thoughts to say, well, how could I get younger people to join, to carry on this organization, to carry on the traditions?
John, I presume you have a similar problem?
Actually, Philip's second challenge, I think, is one of my top challenges. The getting, and I don't want to say younger members into the association. And I understand. I mean, I became serious about this when I was in my early 40s. All right. Prior to that, I was busy. We meet on Sundays, right? Every second Sunday of every month. Prior to that, I was working Sundays, so I couldn't dedicate time to Queen's College. All right. Time before that, your family time, the kids were younger, you're doing a lot of stuff with them. But when you get to that point, like around, late 30s, early 40s, is when you sort of settled in, where you have the time ready to dedicate to something like these sort of charitable organizations. So that's what. So I know that it's going to be hard to get students who are 20 and 25 years old to come on board in any sort of a meaningful and sustainable manner. But if you can get some of the 35-year-olds and the 40-year-olds and 45-year-olds, that's sort of the target group that I visualize I want to look for. But those are the folks who will come and they will stay. All right. So that's one of my main challenges. With regard to like Philip's first challenge, that used to be a challenge of ours at one point, but not so much anymore. And I think part of that is our connections with the school. We still have occasions where you send an email on the 1st of January, you don't get a response until the 21st. Right? That still happens. But sad to say, I speak to the school sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. All right. So there are times when you get a request for stuff and you're able to implement it quickly because of the constant contact you have with them. We also have a very strong chapter in Georgetown, right? The local chapter, who've been doing fantastic work, and they're underground, and they get requests frequently. They know when things are needed, and they sort of get the word out, and so we're able to sort of move agilely and get things to QC in a sort of very quick manner, But the new members is a challenge, and also too, this phrase I use a lot. A big tent. I believe in a big tent, and we're rather than having a bunch of little teepees and wigwams all over the place, a big tent where we all come under and be able to operate from a position of strength. And when I say all, I mean bishops, QCs, and Roses and Josephs, everyone come together and really be able to affect change. And getting people to think like that and to come on board in a meaningful way, I think is a challenge and something that's important. I think at some point we got to get to that point where we all have our individual associations, but we've got to have a really strong inter-association sort of organization where we all can play off each other's strengths and and challenges and opportunities, and really get a much better product down to Guyana. As we said earlier, and Philip said the same thing too. We want to rise and improve all of Guyanese students, not just the students from our alma maters. We want to be able to see St. Rose's do well and North Georgetown do well, and to be able to come together as a variety of schools and do this is a real goal of mine. And I know there are people like Lorraine Croft that said Roses. She thinks the same way. She's doing a great job in getting the schools together. We need to do some more of that. We need to sort of collaborate, as I said before, in a meaningful manner, not just parties and making sure we don't have clashes and party dates, but helping each other out, sharing resources. Those are some important things we need to get done.
Philip, you wanted to say something to that?
No, not really. But just to reiterate, our chapter in Guyana is also doing a great job. I was just talking holistically about the whole process.
Yeah, I know that process, Philip. I know it very intimately. And John, I see you laughing. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And then there is a very there's a needle to be threaded, and that is we are expatriates, or that there's that dynamic there about talking to people or having certain expectations, which in itself can get some pushback. And so that needle has to be threaded very delicately and very sensitively. So there is that. I wanted to ask you, well, John, to your point about the association, for those of our listeners who don't know, I don't know if they still exist, but I think there was a association of associations that came about about 10 years ago or so on. Are they still in existence?
Yes, to some extent, yes.
So John, you mentioned this association, and this is a good segue into my next question, and that is collaboration. And we are here, right? Philip, president of Bishops and Association, New Queens College. Do you guys see opportunities to collaborate? And you have collaborated. I think a few months ago there was a fun day that I attended in Long Island somewhere, which I think was very good, a good start. But do you see future collaboration? This is nothing new between the two associations. We had the annual parties where that was a collaboration and collaborative effort and so on. But do you see future collaboration? John talks about coming together and using that as a form of strength to deliver excellence. Do you have anything on the horizon that you are thinking about collaborating on? If you're not giving away any kind of secrets, but are you pursuing any kind of collaborative effort?
Well, I mean, right now there are no real concrete events or collaborations that we have, in mind. But I don't see any issue with collaboration in the future, whether near or distant future. I mean, as you rightfully said, we did it for about 10 or 12 years, the Big Labor Day Jam. That was, a great success financially for both organizations for many, many years until it stopped in 2016. And I could see that it could be a pathway towards something bigger and better in the future. All right. But it's not something that just happen like tomorrow. All right. It takes some planning. I mean, it takes, leaders with like minds. I mean, I believe that now we may have a leadership that sort of thinks that that's a good idea. I mean, so that's the first step. And so while there's nothing right now, as far as I know, that's pending, all right, I see nothing that would negatively impact a collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Philip, you both of you talked about younger membership. John, you gave a very interesting a very interesting reason as to why it might be difficult to have the 25 years old and so on, and possibly 35. But what came to mind immediately is we know they exist, but does anyone know where they exist and have access to this population of alumni?
We've reached out to a couple of alums who we know where they exist. Some of them are not in the New York area, or they used to be in the New York area and have moved away. I'm really trying hard to figure out how to get them involved, because while I agree with John's overall theory of, donating time and energy to a charitable organization is more that later time in life. Children may be grown, married, home ownership, all those things. But I had a conversation with a 20-something-year-old, and she was telling me, well, we were leaders in college of various organizations, so we know what it's like, and we know what it takes to be part of a group, and maybe even run a group. Well, how do I translate it into you coming and being part of our group and also taking on a leadership role in our group? And that is the disconnect between what you've accomplished, because they are accomplished in a way, right? Well, we need you to come and help us. One thought that came to me is, does the experience at high school impact your decision whether you want to participate in an alumni association? And that thought just came to me. Because probably there will be people who didn't have a good high school experience and couldn't wait to leave. And they said, that was the last day of my experience at this place. I want nothing else to do with this place. Right? So you'll be flogging a dead horse there, right? So think about, those are some things that you have to think about.
John, before I go to you, I want to at 7:50 open up the forum for questions from the audience. I don't know if there are questions I can't see, but gosh, it slipped my mind a question I was going to ask you, John.
It's called old age, Selwyn.
Yeah. I'm fully aware of that.
Yeah. Happens to me too.
John, anyway, you know what? I can't. Philip was talking about the young people and donating their time. Oh, this is a question. So Philip, that thought that came to you just now, which is a very interesting point about what is there an experience or experiences that a student might have that would lead them to not want to become a part of the alumni association. So the question I have for both of you, but John, I'm going to start with you. Do you find, I don't know if you ever thought of this, that the people who are usually part of the associations, do you find that they were clusters of friends or cliques when they were in high school? Do you find those are the same groupings that tend to participate in the association?
To a great extent, yes. And I keep going back in history. We were formed back in, I guess, 91, way before my time, by a bunch of guys who were buddies, who all went to school around 1964. They stayed friends throughout the years, and then they formed associations. And then they kind of kept it together for many, many, many years. Some of them are still around. Fast forward to around 2018, but I was sort of on the periphery because I was sort of busy doing other things. But we had an event, it was called House Feed. And that was something that was very common and popular in Queens College sometime after I left. I mean, sometime, I guess, in the 1990s or early 2000s. And it encouraged some students to attend and to participate. And we got about 5 or 6 students who were all our buddies in school. And they came and they stayed, right? So I wanted to say something when Philip was speaking, talking about the youth. I think youth begets youth. And if you find a strong young person, whether they're in their 20s or early 30s, they all have their networks. And one of the things we've been thinking about in attracting students and doing it in like a year level, you got to have like a bridge or a links in order to get people in. Like me, I'm in my late 50s, right? I don't know a lot of kids who are in their 40s, but it may be some guys who are in their early 50s who may have gone to school with some of those in the late 40s. So we need to create links in that way. In the same way, going down the line to the 30s, the 20s. I think that's the way we can bring people in a sort of in a larger level. But to answer your question directly, yes, there's a lot of people who are in the association who were friends or classmates from back in those days. So they come as a group, and I think understand this stay, in most cases. Some of the people who come and leave are ones who probably don't feel as though they have a lot in common with the other people there in the association, or they don't see something that's fulfilling to them. So as we go ahead in our life and we think of impacting the school and impacting the students, we've got to keep in the back of our mind that we've got to do things for alumni as well. I saw someone mention on Facebook peer mentorship. I mean, that is so important. That is something that I think would attract and keep people. That would I think would get some of the younger students in. If a kid comes up to Europe, let's give a quick example. A kid comes up to the US to go to university or to college, and they run into some difficulty or need some help with guidance. If they can go onto our website and find that there's 3 people there who did biochemistry like I am doing now, and maybe I can reach out to them. And if those people there indicate, yeah, I would love to help and to mentor people, and they can call them up or reach out to them. I mean, that's golden. That's a slam dunk. And that's the kind of thing that we need to get to. And we don't have a lot of time tonight to talk about some of the goals that we have and some of the dreams and hopes that I have. But that's something that's really important to me and to my whole group right now. Being able to provide that strong career guidance, that mentorship that the younger students would need, both the ones current students and also the ones who may have graduated and migrated here or in college, or even ones who've left college and get ready to start their careers. Just that whole the connections. I mean, like all good colleges, your kids go to college and you pay $50,000 or $6,000 to go to school. Much of that, the benefit of that is sort of networks that they can get into, and being able to form a strong network. I mean, I think would be fantastic for alumni coming up, and that's something we've got to do. Bear in mind, our main focus is the students in Queens College, but alumni also have to get a piece of the pie.
Philip, you want to add to that before we open up the...
Well, we recognized as a chapter, and what happened was we tied it. Well, we didn't tie it intentionally, but it so happened we have scholarship opportunities for students who are going out to tertiary education. And what sometimes happens is as these students are coming up to North America, we kind of navigate with them. And actually the process even starts from Georgetown. On, how do you get to United States? What are the expectations? What you should be doing? And, a simple tip is you're here to get an education. So, that's your number one focus. So we have also gone down the road of mentorship, and we have a right at the school in Georgetown. The local chapter has started a mentorship program, and I think some of our members are looking to be part of that, and be mentors to the current students at Bishop's High School.
That's good. So we have 5 minutes. Maybe we can go over for an extra 5, but let's open up the questions. Sharon, do you have any questions for us?
We don't have a lot of questions, but we have a lot of comments.
Okay.
Some of them are networking with other alumni can advance one's careers. Claude Fontenelle said, not everyone had a great high school experience. There was a lot of snobbery and clubbishness in high school. Sarah Wilkinson-Eitel said, is there a shift in the demographics of the Guyanese diaspora in the US? Maybe we need chapters in other areas or a concept like Selwyn's Hub. A lot of people, O'Neill Sandy said peer mentorship, which is what John mentioned. Lorraine Croft agreed that there's a problem with most of the alumni associations attracting the younger members. And John Johnson asked if there was a plan to address the waning interest in their respective organizations, attracting new memberships, but we kind of beat that one up. And those were the comments we had.
Thank you, Sharon. Mm-hmm. John, I think you have a few more minutes to mention some of those goals.
Yeah, well, before I do, just to respond to one of the comments that Sharon just mentioned, we do have chapters in, like budding chapters in like Atlanta, which is a hotspot, in DC, in Florida, and then in London and in Toronto. So we are sort of covering the US pretty well. All right. In some of these areas, though, it's not as easy as in New York, where we all are really close together. It's easier to get together in New York than it is, let's say, living in Georgia, all right, where distances are great. But we are addressing that, and the Georgia guys are relatively new, but they've already started, rocking and rolling down there. Diane and Owen and his group, yeah, they're doing great work, scholarships and all that stuff. Yeah. So anyway, to come back to your question, I mean, some of the things I have in mind, is creating, and we started that way back in the early, in around 2014, 2015, but getting back to that and sort of creating a pathway for students out of high school into tertiary education, either at UG or kids who want to come abroad who may have the resources to do so. Being able to create a pathway to them that they can be able to get assimilated pretty easily and pretty quickly into schools here in the US. We've got quite a few alumni who are well entrenched in some of the universities here in the US. And if they can be able to help with that, that would be really great for students coming out to Guyana. I mentioned 2014, we had some connections through Dr. Foster. We had some connections to West Virginia University, or West Virginia State University. And we actually had about 4 or 5 students from Queens College who actually attended there due to Dr. Foster's. Well, you've had in your program, Selwyn, due to Dr. Foster's, they'll be able to make those arrangements. So we need to have some more alumni with that kind of ability, like a Terrence Blackmon or one of the other many doctors we have, who can sort of smoothen the pathway to kids coming here, probably even be able to get them scholarships, and then once they're here, provide them with guidance, make sure they get through their academics and then onto the workforce in an easy manner. We mentioned mentorship, improve career guidance. I mean, all high schools here in the US, have professionals who work in these guidance offices. I mean, we need that in the schools in Guyana. We need to have strong guidance there. I mean, to help the kids. I mean, I'm not just coming to UG. UG is great. I mean, the VC is a QC girl. You know, we want to make sure that the kids make the right decisions when they're starting to choose their careers, and good, I guess, trained guidance folks will be great in assisting with that. You know, I also mentioned creating some sort of a database with member expertise that members can tap into. I mean, that is something key. We're actually working on a new website right now, and one of the key parts of it is building this database that alumni, especially financial members, can tap into and be able to see who has some expertise they're seeking, and be able to get guidance from that. So those are some of the sort of targets that we have, that I have in mind, and my current exec has in mind. But sustainability is also really, really important. We talk about scholarships. I mean, we've got a couple of scholarships going. We want to increase that, get some more scholarships. I mean, give some alumni more things to want to come to the association and stay with the association when they come here. And Philip mentioned impacting students back home. We do need to do that. We need to be able to get the kids before they leave school. We need to be able to. They need to know we're here, we exist, we're willing to help them, and so from the time they're in fourth or fifth form, they must know that there is this assistance available to them. And it needs a little more getting into the school, and please give them gifts, give them more scholarships, making sure we are present at speech night, so the kids know that there's life after QC, and their QC alum who are really interested in seeing their advancement and are willing to help.
Thanks for that, John. Philip, anything to add?
Yeah, basically, we have our student conference every 2 years. We had the interruption, of course, because of COVID. But coincidentally, the theme of that conference is Life After Bishop's High School. So, so that it encapsulates everything about, what is your life like after Bishop's? Because not everyone is going to go to college. Some people might be looking to go into the workforce. Some people might not be wanting to go to academic college. They might be looking at what we call a trade school, vocational school. So it's about meeting the needs of every alumni, or as many alumni as possible, to address what they would like their future to be in terms of, well, what do you see yourself doing? What advice we could provide to you? Encourage them to think outside the box. And personally, I would prefer a student who is a critical thinker versus an academic scholar, because we could learn the book and be book smart, but I want somebody who could be faced with any situation and be able to think critically to understand the question or the situation and make the best possible decision. And that is why, I believe in a liberal arts education as we know it, because it's more about the critical thinking, problem solving skills versus just learning 2 + 2 = 4, or focusing on 2 + 2 = 4.
I have a question to both of you. The scholarship. Now, this may sound unpopular, but or radical. The students that you would offer a scholarship to, could there be a requirement for any of these students, if they don't return to Guyana after graduation, whichever alumni association they are close to, become a member of that association? Is that possible?
That thought has run through my mind. I haven't discussed it with the executive at large. There's a thin line that you gotta make sure you don't cross, is because you want to give a young person an opportunity, and you don't want them at the same time feel there's strings attached to this. right? You're getting a scholarship which will help to provide you an opportunity to advance yourself. What we're hoping is when you get that opportunity in the future, you will remember this time and say, you know what? If it wasn't for the help of this group, I might not have reached there. How can I now give back to the younger people so that they can have the same opportunity that was given to me? And I suppose I'm appealing to the better angels in them versus making it you're not getting the scholarship unless you join this chapter. That sounds like I'm giving you something, but I'm going to take it back, But the thought has crossed my mind.
Yeah. I think rather than looking at it as quid pro quo, I think it's sort of as you talk about appealing to their better natures, is sort of teaching them at that stage the power of giving back, rather than seeing it as mandatory and it's quid pro quo. But anyway, that's for another conversation. Before I close off, time just seems to run out. Sharon, are there any other comments or questions that you'd like to air before I close off?
Yes, we have a couple. Nadia Ramdin had a couple of questions, suggestions. Is it possible to have an international virtual meeting every 6 months? It may promote membership and help networking. And then she continued to ask, are there grants available which QC students can apply for to help with their high school costs? And then Chauncey Lee is asking when part 2 of this conversation is going to be aired with a female perspective.
Next year, we talked about this ad nauseum. This is the Chauncey's question. We talked about this when we were planning this conversation, that we're going to have a part 2 next year at some point. And that, to me, the earlier the better, because I think it's very important to bring our sisters in and to get their perspective and have a sort of a richer conversation. So to your question, Chauncey, I don't know exactly when, but we are going to have that conversation.
But Selwyn, next year is 12 months, so I don't think there's
Well, okay, I leave that up to you and John to pick a date.
Yeah, I think we should try to set a target somewhere in the first quarter of the year. But to answer one of Nadia's questions is that yes, there is in Guyana something called a special awardees fund, which we contribute to, and anyone can contribute to, that helps with needy children, the children who've got some financial challenges. We also have a scholarship that pays exam fees for students who are not able to afford it, right? So there is such facility available. I mean, they've done things like buy glasses for students who can't afford it, or pay for transportation. Give a lunch to students who can't afford lunch or breakfast. And so there is such something available there. And Nadia can contact me later. I can give her information if she wants to contribute towards that. She can do it through the chapter or directly. But there are ways to do it.
Selwyn, I just want to say for the folks who don't know Bishops, we have a lunch program where we provide meals to students who unfortunately not able to provide for themselves, families. And we also have our version of what John was mentioning is our Principal CFIT Fund, which Principal has access to funds to help with student. One of the last things I heard they did was students were short on CXC fees, and they will use, the principal would provide funds for that. And a shirt or shoes or something like that. So all in all, I think both chapters are recognizing these various needs and have put things in place to assist the folks who can't afford it at this time.
Thanks, guys. I like that question that suggestion from Nadia. And it to me, it speaks to that whole question about membership and being part of the association. The idea of having a forum, an international forum where people can not just voice their opinions, but come up with ideas and suggestions. I think that is awesome. It's something that should be looked into. And, you know, I don't think we are short of ideas. I think it's the forum in which these ideas can be disseminated.
Let's check really quickly, Selwyn, and we do have such a forum in place. It's called ICQC. Is a sort of umbrella group international chapter. So all of the various chapters, the 6 or 7 chapters we have, get together every year or every other year and talk about things that we can do to improve each other and collaborate on some of the needs of the students in the school. So there is something like that. It could, of course, be improved to do more brainstorming. Not a lot of brainstorming gets done. We can improve it to do that. But it's annual.
Good.
Selwyn, maybe we could ask for the contact information for some of the folks who've made suggestions so that we can get a more detailed input of what they had in mind.
That's a good idea.
You know.
All right. Guys, anything else to add?
I just want to say, Selwyn, thank you for the idea. It's a start. And I'm careful to choose that word start. I hope it's not the end. Because in the end of all of this, we have so much in common. We are all Guyanese who came from some high school in Guyana. We are somewhere in part of the world, and in the end, we wanna help the younger folks get those opportunities that some of us had or have, and so they can get it. So I'm looking forward to the next part where we have some a couple of young ladies who can give us their perspectives. And who knows where that will lead to and what it could mean. And in effect, it could even expand this membership that we didn't even think about at the beginning of this.
I agree with you on that, Philip. I know the power of networks, and building bridges. This conversation is not about me and what I do, but I just want to make a point that when you have that intention to build bridges and create opportunities for others, a lot of amazing things happen, things that you can hardly imagine. People come forward that want to be a part of this movement. And John, I'm so glad that you mentioned that QC has a forum for that kind of interaction and those kinds of discussions and so on. I think it's a great start, Philip. You're absolutely right. I am going to look into having part 2 as soon as possible. I'll sit down with the 2 of you and see what we can come up with in terms of our schedules. I think that is important, but I want to close by thanking both of you for agreeing to this. When we met, I decided to have this a 3-way conversation so that I can get both of you to agree, and you both force word, let's do this. I have no regrets. I am really happy that we've had this conversation and so many people tuned in and were able to make their comments and so on. I always believe that it begins with a conversation, right? It begins with a conversation. That's how you build community. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Philip, John, I am so proud of the 2 of you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
By the way, one last point, you look very young for your age, both of you.
Thank you, Selwyn. Thank you. You're doing good work. Let's make sure we invite the young ladies, but also some of the younger students. We've got some younger members in the executive who I think we need to hear from as well. Sort of the next group. So we want to make sure we include them as well. I look forward to it. And,
Right.
Philip says the start. Philip, you and I got to make sure that this start doesn't end here. We got to make sure we keep Selwyn foot to the fire. Make sure that we can do this. We do this again and do it soon, and get more people involved. You know.
Sure.
I'll hold you guys to that.
All right.
All right.
Good.
Good night.
Good night to everyone.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone. This has been a blast.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.